We are so happy to have everybody here, and joining us, Rick McKeon, who's had an amazing health recovery from stage 3 kidney disease, heart disease, obesity, you know, just a miracle reversal. Well, not really miracle, he worked hard for it.
Let's do it!
Thanks, everybody. Well, I'd like to thank the Alliance Wellness Health for inviting me here this evening. Thanks to Chris and to Ken. It's a privilege to be able to speak here at the clinic. And hopefully, I'll be able to share some things with you that will motivate you and inspire you along your journey. Because I certainly have had a journey, and I'm still on the journey. It's not over yet. If you have questions or comments at any time, just let me know. This whole journey, I call it plant-based health and wellness. My journey from obesity, heart disease, and stage 3 kidney failure, and a bunch of other things that Ken didn't mention. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything, frankly. Right? I'm just me. So I'm going to share with you my story, and hopefully if there's some things there that you can learn from, that's great. If there are things that you think are like completely bogus, that's fine too. All right? So that's my disclaimer. I'm not trying to give medical advice tonight. I'm relating my story. About 12 years ago, I had a heart attack and open heart surgery, triple bypass. And so that got my attention for a while. Frankly, not for a long while, only a few months. And I was right back to my old ways of eating loads of junk food and drinking about a 12-pack of beer every day. So yeah, completely alcoholic. So my weight started going up and my health started going down.
Was this
is me.
Was that when you decided to take that picture? Where had you? Because at some point you said, "I'm going to start this. I'm going to take a picture of me."
Yeah, right about that time.
Was that after your heart attack?
That was
Yeah.
last year,
This is 2 years ago. 2 years. So it had been several years that I had been getting completely out of control. So I woke up about 2 years ago, and my left arm was completely numb. Not like when you sleep on it wrong and you can, shake it out, but this is numb and it stayed numb. Also, I was partially blind in my right eye. There was a big black field there where I couldn't see anything. Probably a bleed, so it's probably a combination of a stroke and a bleed. So I went right to the emergency room, got up, got cleaned up, went straight to the VA. And when I arrived there, it was kind of like this. My left arm was numb, I had partial blindness in the right eye, dangerously high blood pressure. My blood pressure at that time was 228 over 134.
Wow.
Those of you who know blood pressure know that, not good. I was in stage 3 kidney failure. My EFGR, estimated glomerular flow rate, was 34. It should be above 60, so I was in stage 3 kidney failure.
And how many stages? What happens after stage 3 kidney?
Well, that's what the doctor said. My doctor said, the next thing is dialysis, and after that, death.
Right.
So I figured, well, those aren't very good options. So we got to do something about that. According to my blood work, the oncologist there said I had bone marrow cancer, and I had an enlarged liver. Well, that makes sense. I'm drinking a 12-pack of beer every day. I had neuropathy in my feet, pretty severe. In fact, it was so severe that at night, and I'd try and relax in bed, my legs would jerk. I had like a restless leg thing, and so it'd be hard to fall asleep because of the pain in my legs and my feet. Morbidly obese, as you saw. They took an x-ray and found a spot on my lungs. They said I had too much blood. Now that's very strange. It was strange to me, and they wanted to take some off, like bleeding, like they used to do in the Middle Ages, except now they don't use leeches. In fact, I did allow them to take a unit off, which I probably will not do again. But they said too much blood, and my hemoglobin level was too high. I have ocular migraines, which is not a serious thing. It's not painful, but they're having those a lot. I had itching and rashes and sores like all over my body. like some kind of psoriasis going on, probably because of lack of liver function. I could hardly walk. I mean, I had trouble walking from the bedroom to the living room without hanging onto the wall and everything just to get where I was going. I could barely lean over and pick something up off the floor. That had to do with the weight, but it also had to do with the arthritis, in my legs and my hips. Arthritis in my shoulders, both shoulders. So I could only lay on one side for like maybe a half an hour or so. Then I'd have to flop, and it'd start throbbing. So I'd have to flop over to the other side. So all night long I was flopping back and forth. Not good for getting sleep. All right, so I knew something had to be done. This is picture me, right? I'm not actually me, but that's the way I felt. I'm standing on the edge here, and I need to back off a little bit and put some distance between me and a catastrophe. So this is what had to change. Diet and lifestyle. I adopted a whole food plant-based diet, started getting a little bit more exercise. For me, that's walking and hiking a little bit.
Rick, how'd you find out to do the whole food plant-based? That's a good question.
That's a good question. Everybody finds out a little differently, I suppose. I think probably for me, I watched the video Forks Over Knives.
Which we're showing here next month on the 20th.
That's
That's
great.
seen it or haven't seen it yet.
There are so many wonderful videos
Yeah.
out there. There's no want for information. Many of them are free on YouTube. Many of them are on Netflix. And some are on FMTV, which is FMTV Gaia right now. But there's so many videos out there that are very educational and very inspirational too. Forks Over Knives is one of them. In fact, I have some fact sheets here, 8 different ones
Want to get them out after?
that you can pick up afterward. I've got 10 copies each, so if we run out, these are on my website too, and I've got cards for my website that you can download for free. And they're not copyrighted or anything. You can feel free to copy them off and share them with your friends. But I have these are just simple, single-page sheets, two-sided usually, but this is helpful websites. If you're looking for websites to follow. Oh, good. This is video documentaries. That's what I was talking about, the videos. There's a ton of them out there that are great. This is experts to follow. Here's one on apoptosis and cell regeneration. Some people call that apoptosis. And we're constantly, the cells are constantly dying off and being regenerated. Apoptosis is a programmed cell death, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a natural thing because we're constantly generating more cells. And so they're programmed to die. But if they don't, this is like condition with cancer. They don't die when they're supposed to die off. Recommended books. These are some of my favorite books. One on vitamin B12 and vitamin D3. Where do vegetarians get their vitamin B? Good question. But what you do is simply supplement. I mean, there are some foods that are non-animal foods that have it. Plant-based nutrition, protein. That's a good question. Everybody says, well, where do you get your protein? Well, this will answer that question. I've got a chart with different plant-based foods and how much protein is in each. And again, calcium. Where do you get your calcium? Well, there's loads of calcium in plant-based foods. So those are some fact sheets that you can pick up. That was an answer to somebody's question, right? You want to take those? So when I decided to make this change, I thought, oh boy, I'd never eaten plant-based before. I had, grease burgers and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, am I going to be eating cardboard? Well, as you've seen here tonight, you're not going to be eating cardboard. There are hundreds of delicious and simple, my stuff is very simple and delicious meals that you can make. And I started out with a couple of tools to help me along. I bought a blender. This happens to be a NutriBullet, but I can put stuff in that blender. All kinds of healthy stuff. Raw broccoli and just greens that I wouldn't eat, nasty tasting things, and put all this healthy stuff with nuts and seeds and a banana and a fig and a date all in there, blend it up and drink it. It makes a wonderful drink, and you're getting just a tremendous amount of nutrients. So that's an easy way to increase the amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet. Really easy. And again, some people need to ease into it. They don't jump in with both feet. Well, that's a good way to start. Another good thing I did was to get a juicer. And I don't do as much juicing as I used to, frankly. But still, if I buy some produce, and it doesn't last forever. So if I can see that I'm not going to be able to consume that produce, I'll juice it up. Right? So I at least get the nutrients. You don't get the fiber. Throw the pulp out. I mean, some people can do things with the pulp, but that's a good way to get a bunch of nutrients. So, here are a couple of dishes that I make. This is my world famous spicy vegetable soup. Very simple. Just chop a bunch of vegetables, add some spices, and I bring it to a boil and then let it simmer for a while. Wonderful soup. Very simple, very tasty, and very healthy. Whole wheat pasta and mushroom gravy, a chili burger made out of plant-based foods, cucumber sandwich, and that cheese in there is a vegan cheese. Vegetable bake, again, whatever your favorite vegetables are, put them in a pan, put a bunch of spices on it, and stick it in the oven. Couldn't be simpler than that. Veggie meatloaf, which is not meatloaf, okay? It's kind of like a bean loaf. So, because we're eating the standard American diet, abbreviated SAD, and it is pretty sad, and it's filled with salt, sugar, chemicals. We're in the midst of an epidemic, frankly, in this country. Well, in other countries too. As soon as they adopt a Western diet, they start, countries who diabetes and hypertension and cancer and all that is virtually unknown. As soon as they start eating our diet, they catch up with us real quick. So we're seeing today children, like 10-year-olds who have intimal medial thickening of the carotid artery. In other words, young children who have plaques building up in their carotid artery. We're seeing childhood obesity. You've seen, if you've been watching TV or anything or seen any of these videos, young kids that are obese and have diabetes. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset, but now teenagers have type 2 diabetes. Well, if a teenager has that, you can't call it adult onset anymore because they're not adults. So that's what's happening with our diet and lifestyle today. It's a dreadful trend. People who come from these countries where these things are almost non-existent and migrate to this country, all of a sudden they develop the same things. So it's not their genes. Their genes didn't change, on the way over here. It's the lifestyle and the diet that changed. So, lifestyle diseases. And I want to encourage people to take a little different approach. The traditional approach, pharmaceutically based approach, has been diagnose a disease by the symptom and then treat it with some chemicals, with pharmaceuticals. And that really does nothing to cure the person. Even the American Diabetes Association said not too long ago that diabetes is an incurable disease. And they needed to just manage it for the rest of their life. They'd never get well. So they prescribed metformin, and not only would they not get well, they would get actually worse. They need more drugs and all that. Whereas that's what I call the check engine light. The check engine light comes on in your car, you take your car to the mechanic, and he says, "Oh yeah, I see that." And he pulls the wire off the check engine light and says, "There you go. No more check engine light." Well, did he cure the problem? Well, obviously not. That's just a symptom telling you there's something wrong. Same thing with things like diabetes. When you have your A1C checked, it's greater than 6.5, you're diabetic. Well, we got to get that blood sugar down. That's the problem. So we're going to give you some drugs to lower that, as opposed to addressing what the problem really is. And healing the person. Diabetes is a completely reversible disease. The problem is eating a lot of animal fat. Fat builds up in the cells and starts to clog the insulin receptors. So the disease really is insulin resistance. So you have ntramyocellular lipids, which are lipids that are inside the cell that are blocking the insulin receptors. In the same way with body fat, I don't want to get off track here too much. I'm still carrying a lot of extra body fat. But there are, people who are overweight or obese tend to get diabetes, type 2, more so than others, more so than people of normal weight. And that has to do with body fat, because there's subcutaneous body fat, which is the body fat under the skin, subdermal, and it secretes estrogen. So body fat is not just benign. It's not just something that sits there and does nothing. It's not just adipose tissue. It is metabolically active. So high levels of estrogen are not good, especially in women. They start to promote breast lumps and fibroids. And visceral fat, or inner body fat that surrounds the organs, produces inflammatory cytokines. And these cytokines act with all inflammatory processes, but in particular for diabetes, they tend to block the insulin receptors from the outside of the cells. So a person who is overweight has a double whammy, really. They've got the fat inside the cell blocking the receptors, and the fat and the cytokines outside blocking fats. So we want to look for the cause of disease, the real disease, not just treat symptoms. And that's what I'm trying to do in my life. Okay, so here's some example. I talk quite a bit about diabetes, lowering blood sugar levels versus reversing insulin resistance. Cancer, you say, oh, tumors, we got to shrink those tumors. When in fact, restoring the immune function is the best way to go.
What happened to your bone cancer?
So, I'm sorry?
You said you had bone cancer, you were diagnosed with bone cancer?
Yeah, bone marrow cancer. And my last checkup, it was gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there any, did you take anything for it? Did they give you?
Whole food, plant-based diet.
That was everything?
That was
That's
it.
all you did?
That was all I did. I could have just said, okay, I'll go ahead and have radiation therapy to kill off the excess of red blood cells, but I didn't.
They recommended that?
Yeah,
Uh-huh, but you didn't do it.
but I didn't do that. So, we all have cancer cells in our bodies. All of us do. Typically, the immune system keeps them in check. When the immune system becomes compromised, then they can start growing.
Your diabetes, were you on meds for that too?
No.
Were you on
I
any
didn't
meds?
have diabetes.
Okay.
No, thankfully. I had many other things,
Yeah, I know.
but not diabetes. But so we want to bolster the immune system. There are T cells, killer cells that kill off abnormal cells, and then there are leukocytes that come along and gobble up the fragments. A healthy immune system is good from many perspectives, cancer being one of them. Hypertension, again, take your blood pressure and it's high, oh boy, we got to give them some drugs. I was on lisinopril for years before I started becoming allergic to it. And once I did, my tongue would swell up in my throat. I went to the emergency room and they kept me there because they thought they might have to stick a tube down my throat because I was having trouble breathing. Pretty scary and very painful too. So I couldn't take lisinopril anymore. And they tried adlodipine, they tried metoprolol. I was allergic to all of it. So I knew I had to bring it down naturally. And my blood pressure now is still a little high, but it's getting down into the normal range and I'm not taking any drugs at all. So again, hypertension can be reversed. Autoimmune diseases, okay, again, treating symptoms with painkillers versus repairing the gut. You know, our guts.
That is hard to do.
What's that?
Reversing the leaky gut. It's
Yeah.
very hard to do. It's my problem.
Very hard to do. You know, our gut is porous, anyhow.
Right.
Well, that's how nutrients get from the gut into the bloodstream. But if you're eating a lot of processed foods and have a lot of toxins, you know, there are toxins in the air, there are toxins in the water we drink, in the foods. There are toxins in cosmetics. People put cosmetics right on their skin, and you know, our skin is not just like a rubber, what do they call it? Rubber layer that's impervious. Our skin is permeable too, and what you put on your skin can get into your bloodstream in terms of cosmetics. Also, household cleaning supplies. If you have to wear gloves to use that cleaning supply so you don't get any on your hands, you can do that, but even though you do that, you're still breathing the fumes. So you want to be aware of even all your household stuff for toxins. The four pillars of health, as I see them, are diet and lifestyle, stress management, and detoxification. Those four will take you a long way towards health. So, today, I'm not completely there yet, but today I'm enjoying life. I can walk from my bedroom to the living room, you know, without hanging out of the wall. I can hike, can do a lot of things. I can even do strenuous hikes. Making progress. Today, and I haven't had any meds in quite a while, actually, a year and a half or so. Completely med-free. See if you can figure out what that means. I call my journey the rocky road to success, or the bumpy road to success. I didn't do it perfectly. In fact, I still don't, frankly, do it perfectly. But every time I would slip up or have a setback, I would just get right back on the program. I wouldn't beat myself up. I'd just get right back to it. And so here's my rocky road, but it's the slope of that thing is upward. Whereas if you are a perfectionist and everything's got to be exactly right and I can't screw up at all, and as soon as things go wrong, you think, I can't do this. You throw in the towel. So this is the smooth road to failure. So better to be on the rocky road to success. In fact, I consider setbacks and plateaus and stuff just part of the process, part of the learning process. Oh yeah, I learned that I'm susceptible to that. I shouldn't do that again. So it's a learning process as we go along.
I've been seeing a cognitive behavioral therapist, and she says it's useful data. When we have slip-ups, it's useful data.
Useful data, exactly, yeah.
You know, you touched the stove, it was hot, okay, you know, don't do that again. You know, you stop exercising for a week, okay, I guess I need to exercise more often than that, whatever, you know. We go off the rail with diet or other things, and
Perfect. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and it's not like self-judgment, I'm bad, you know, I've got to go to confession, it's just like, okay.
You can go to confession if you want. But yes, there is no such thing as failure. You just haven't reached your goal yet. The only time it becomes failure is when you just quit altogether. Then it is failure. But if you mess up, no big deal. Just get right back on the program and keep climbing that rocky road towards success. Here are a few experts I've discovered along the way. Hopefully many of you know these people. Pam Popper, and the alliance here is associated with Pam Popper's work. Neil Barnard is the head of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Wonderful doctor. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, one of my heroes. He started out, before anybody knew about it, reversing heart disease with nutrition. He got a group of sick people from the hospital and from the Cleveland Clinic, and they gave him some really sick ones too. But he put them on a very strict regimen, and they all reversed their heart disease.
Everyone that was compliant.
Everyone that was compliant. There was one that left the program and didn't fare so well. Yeah. So Caldwell Esselstyn's a real pioneer. Also Dr. Colin Campbell, another real pioneer. He's the one that did experiments with rats. He was in the Philippines and discovered that the rich Filipinos who ate a lot of meat and stuff, the kids were getting liver cancer. And that was very unusual. And then he discovered a study that was done in India regarding casein in rats. Casein is like the main protein in milk. And they fed these rats 20% casein, 20% of calories casein, and they exposed them to a carcinogenic aflatoxin. And they grew tumors. Took that down to 5%, and the tumors started to shrink. Took it back up to 20%, so it was like turning a switch on and off. So that's one of his big works.
And the China.
And of course the China study.
Yeah.
They studied thousands and thousands of people over 10 years.
Yeah.
Dr. Michael Clapper, one of my favorites. He's funny, and he has a thing going on now, or an initiative, I should say, called Moving Medicine Forward, where he's going around to medical schools, and this is approved by the board and all that, going around to medical schools and teaching the students about the impact nutrition has on health. And not just giving a lecture and leaving, but they start these student groups that continue afterward regarding nutrition and health. It's typical in the curriculum of medical schools. They don't get all that much training about how diet and lifestyle affect health. They get trained in diagnosis and symptoms and pharmaceuticals. Well, that's changing. Hopefully that's going to be changing a lot more. Michael Greger is a researcher, basically. On his website, which is in one of the fact sheets, all the stuff is free. It's completely free research. John Robbins, I don't know if you know his story. He was the son of the owner of Baskin Robbins. He, due to inherit the fortunes, but his uncle, the other owner of Baskin Robbins, died of a heart attack early. He thought from eating too much ice cream. And so he didn't feel in good conscience. So he quit Baskin Robbins, and he gave up the potential fortune that he would inherit. I mean, like billions of dollars. And he went on to write several books, and another one of my heroes.
And the book that was like America something?
Yeah, New Diet for America.
New Diet for America,
Yeah.
that's like 35 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not just
And
recent.
He's the first person that showed what was happening on factory farming and what was happening to the animals.
Yeah, he also wrote a book, No Happy Cows.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. So, Dean Ornish, again, one of the pioneers in reversing heart disease. Lori Marbes, she's editor-in-chief of a journal, and of course she's a practitioner too. There's a journal called International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. It's a peer-reviewed journal, and it's free. So,
We get that one, that's great.
what's that?
We get that one.
Do you get that one? Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I get that too. Rip Esselstyn, he's the son of Dr. Esselstyn. He was a professional triathlete for 10 years on a plant-based diet. He went over and became a fireman after that career and he was at the Engine 2 in Austin, Texas, so he started the Engine 2 diet. He has retreats around the country. Chris Carr, she's funny, and she's a cancer survivor, New York Times best-selling author, and quite a personality. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned diet, because what I'm talking about is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. And you don't count calories. You eat pretty much as you want, as long as you're eating the right things. And you get better. And the program that I'm on, I've lost 65 pounds, have a ways to go yet still, but I don't view this program as a weight loss program. This is a health program. Weight loss is like the byproduct. That's just what happens as you start to get healthy.
Side effect, yeah.
So I don't focus on weight. I mean, I do weigh myself, but it's not a weight loss program. It's a health program. Sir.
I'm just thinking you should probably have Dr. John McDougall up there on your list.
Absolutely.
you
Oh, yeah.
missed him.
There are so many. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. John
He's
McDougall
one
is
of the pioneers in the plant-based diet.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, John McDougall. And there are many, many others. I mean, on this sheet, the fact sheet that Ken is making copies for, you'll see 30 or 40 of them on there. And that's not all. I mean, those are like the top, my top favorites. So yeah, John McDougall. So epigenetics and gene expression is part of this too. Everybody says, well, you know, my mom was obese and I'm obese, and you know, it's in our family, it's our genes. But if you go to the grocery store and you see like an obese parents and obese children tagging along with them, maybe drinking a Coke at the same time, well, it looks like it's in their genes. I mean, the parents are obese and the kids are obese. But we don't just... What's that?
It's in the grocery cart.
Well, we're not helpless victims. And we pass our genes down, but we also pass our habits down too. So when you see the obese parents with the obese kids in the grocery store, is it because of their genes or is it because of what they're putting in their mouth? Probably the latter. Epigenetics is a field that's just starting to be understood well. You may have a predisposition for a certain illness, but if that gene is not turned on, not upregulated, it may not express at all. And how do genes get upregulated or downregulated? Through the environment we create in our body, mainly through nutrition, but also through detoxification. So yeah, they're saying now, like with heart disease, is completely avoidable. The genes maybe participate in like 5%. So it's up to us to turn those genes on or off. Oh, okay, that's the grocery store. Okay. So I got so excited when I started this program that I started a free monthly newsletter. And anybody can sign up for that. It's absolutely free. And this is a printed copy of it, but it comes out as a PDF. And I call it the Journal of Plant-Based Health and Wellness. And I have some cards up here if you want the address to my website where you can sign up for that. But every month in the journal, we have a message from the editor, that's me, a feature article, a success story, and we've had several wonderful success stories. This is just for people writing in. And again, if any of you have a success story that you'd like to see in the journal, let me know. Foods is medicine. Talk about foods that lower blood pressure, or foods that are natural blood thinners, or foods with anti-cancer properties. One of those in each issue. A recipe, a spice that, and like turmeric or some other spices and what their characteristics are. Experts to follow, book review, video review, retreats. I know retreats are expensive. I certainly can't afford to go on them, but people do. And it's where you're immersed in it for a week or a long weekend in a healthy lifestyle, and they bring in speakers and they have good food and all that. So I highlight one retreat each time, a health website each time, and then for further study and certification. There are a lot of certification programs available. I don't have any certification yet, but I hope to. I mean, the Physicians Committee has a great certification. Pam Popper has several, both short-term and long-term. Do you want to say something about that?
Oh, yeah, Ken and I are both certified under Wellness Sport and Health with Pam Popper. We studied for like a couple of years under her, a broad range of topics, and it was a really good program. So if anybody's interested in more education, you don't have to get certified. You can just take, she has like tons of classes online. And you'll see it if you're getting our newsletter, you'll get the information from her too.
Cornell University, through eCornell, has this nice certification program under the Colin T. Campbell Center for Nutritional Studies. So there are a lot of them available. Some longer term, some shorter term. Okay, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I know we're probably almost out of time. So here's typical feature articles that I've had in the newsletter. Effective motivation, understanding your blood test results. You get this printout back after you get your blood test, and you're like, what's that all about? All those strange numbers. Well, I just used to kind of blow it off and wait for the doctor. This is before I started taking responsibility for my own health. And I thought, well, the doctor will tell me what this means and if it's good or bad. Well, I started taking interest in what all those numbers mean. Well, it's pretty technical, so I wrote an article breaking them down and simplifying them so that anybody could understand. The same thing with urinalysis, sleep apnea, which I have, which I'm dealing with. I have a CPAP machine, and I have a blood test tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact. So I've eaten the last I'm going to eat for a while. And hopefully we'll see some changes in my hemoglobin levels. A health quiz to wrap up the year last year. Then we're looking forward to nourishing your immune system, an article on hypertension, plant-based nutrition, what all that involves. Medical terminology. When Patty was studying medical terminology for her CRN, I would help her. Maybe I wasn't much of a help, but we studied the prefixes and the suffixes and the root word. And when you start breaking those terms down, it's pretty simple, frankly. So a big long word that doesn't make any sense starts to make sense. So we'll have an article on medical terminology, whole food plant-based living in the environment, big topic. Eating raw, the difference between that and cooked foods. Treating symptoms versus healing, one of my favorite topics. Nourishing your digestive system, autoimmune disease, the gut microbiome, nourishing your endocrine system. And at the end of the year, next year, is another health quiz, gathering information from all the issues. So I also started a new website. This is pretty recent, and I've got that on my cards here, to focus on a lot of different things. I want this eventually to be a wealth of information. Right now it's got some stuff, but not a lot. And I wrote a book. So you can see I've made a lot of changes and done a lot of things the past few years. This is my book, Plant-Based Health and Wellness.
We have a plethora of books.
Oh, and Chris has some here for sale. They're $15, okay? The fact sheets are free, but the books are $15. And that's what they sell for on Amazon. But you don't have to pay shipping here. I've already done that for you. So that's
When was your surgery? How long ago?
the open heart surgery.
Yeah.
That was like 12 years ago.
Okay.
So there was a period of time where I was, I got well. I didn't get well at all, of course. And bypass surgery or stents or any of those procedures, they don't heal anything. It's just a temporary fix. I mean, I was still had heart disease. Well, you compound that with eating junk food, not exercising enough, drinking gobs of beer. So over that intervening period of time, it finally led up to that dreadful morning when I woke up with my right eye partially blind and numbness. And it wasn't until I went into the emergency room that I realized just how a sick puppy I really was and started making these changes. So that's only been a couple of years ago. And so it's still a bumpy road, but we're getting there.
I'm always interested to know how your doctors responded to the method you're doing versus taking the pills and the treatments that they want to give you. Do they fight you on it, or?
Both ways. Both ways. I've had different doctors. One wonderful doctor who was my primary care physician. He wasn't completely sold on this program, but he could see the results I was getting. And that's another factor. A lot of people say, well, how do people, your family act and all that? Well, at first I was very excited and I wanted to tell everybody, but nobody was interested. It wasn't until I started making the changes myself and they could see I'd lost a lot of weight, I was healthier, then they became interested and they said, well, what are you doing? So it's kind of like what Gandhi said. What did he say? Oh, yeah. He said,
Change, you want to say?
Yeah, if you want to see,
That's right.
if you want to see change in the world,
Yeah.
you be that change.
Uh-huh.
So that's the approach I'm taking. So that was one doctor. He was wonderful. He was supportive, but he didn't believe a word I was saying. I had another doctor who wanted me to go in to the oncologist again, and I told him I wasn't going to do that. I said, you know, I'm making good progress now. I'm on a plant-based diet. I'm bringing these numbers down. And he said, there's nothing you can do at home to change things. Nothing.
You have no power.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically,
So they do respond differently.
Yeah, yeah. I've had them laugh at me when I talk about
Yeah.
holistic type things.
Yeah.
I've actually had doctors just laughing.
So I would just say, you be the change and let the doctor believe what he wants.
I get the main.
I wondered if you could speak a little bit about educate yourself and the importance of that in your journey.
Yes. These were my 12 keys for effective motivation. I needed something. I mean, you know, as an alcoholic, as a weak-willed person, I needed something to get me going and keep me going. And educate yourself is one of them. Frankly, that's what we've been talking about here this evening.
Even
It's
stage,
your
stage
health.
3 kidney disease, you have help. You have
Yeah, I
time.
could have started on radiation therapy and probably kill off my immune system, which is the only thing I really had to start getting better with. I could have submitted to that, but I chose not to. I could have gone back to the oncologist because, like the hammer and the nail thing, she sees everything as cancer.
Yeah.
Right.
But in fact, I suspect, and I'll find out more soon, I suspect my elevated hemoglobin levels were because of the sleep apnea. You know, when you have sleep apnea, you stop breathing at night. Maybe a few times, if it's mild, maybe 10 times, or it could be 40 or 60 times per hour that you stop breathing for 10 seconds or more. Well, when you stop breathing, the O2 level in your blood, the blood saturation goes down, and your body thinks it needs to manufacture more red blood cells. So your blood gets thicker, and it leads to hypertension, it leads to heart attacks and other things. So we'll find out if my issue with the hemoglobin was actually sleep apnea or not fairly soon.
And he's talking about getting to the root cause.
Getting to the root cause, yeah. So
Rather than just
it's
treating
your
symptoms.
health, it's your decision. The doctor is not like, you know, the army sergeant, you got a drill sergeant, you got to just do what he says. So get informed. That's the education part, get informed. So, I mean, you may agree with the doctor, you may not, but at least you'll know where you're at.
How do you find out that you have sleep apnea?
You go to, if you suspect it,
I sleep like 3 hours or 4 hours and I wake up.
yeah, you may have sleep apnea. So the way to find out,
Yes.
if you suspect you have sleep apnea, and many people do and are unaware of it, and they suffer some pretty severe consequences. But if you suspect that you do, there's a thing called a sleep study. And you go to the sleep lab and you stay there overnight. Now they have things you can take home too. I was not comfortable in the sleep lab and I didn't sleep well. But they didn't offer me the thing you take home. But they strap you all up, you have an EEG, you have a breathing monitor, and motion sensors and stuff, so you're kind of wired up. And you stay there all night. And if you can sleep, that's great. Hopefully you can sleep long enough for them to get the readings. And they will know whether you have sleep apnea or not. And then the next step is they try you on a CPAP machine and do the same thing. And that way, when you're asleep, they can adjust the level, because there are different levels of pressure. You know, CPAP stands for continuous positive airway pressure. Yeah, pressure is the word. So they can adjust to see what's the right pressure, so you have a prescription for the right amount of pressure. So sleep study is the thing to do. Good. Other questions? Well, thanks so much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.